like a letter that goes along with it. So from the top, Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. So it's EADGBE. And so I just know I had my first finger on the first fret on the second chord going back up. Hey Sharon. And then I had these two fingers on the fourth and fifth, uh, the second fret, fourth and fifth string, and ding, ding, ding. It was the simplest song you can imagine. Thank goodness. Sharon, what's up? When Phoebe was trying to teach you, hey, that's taking it back. Yvette, you in a great state of Texas. You know what? I've been hearing so many good things about Texas. Like Texas, from what I hear, is like like if you're like a lover of America, you're an American. Texas is the great place. Low regulation, a lot of freedom. That's what I've heard. I heard good things about Texas. I might move down there. It seems like it might be my kind of groove. That's right. Don't mess with Texas. I don't have no exes that live in Texas though. All my exes are in Connecticut, but there's there's no cool song about that. But we're gonna get started. We're almost at the 7 minute mark. We're gonna get started shortly. And I'll be back. I'm gonna come back next week. So what I want you guys to do, if you could tell a friend to tell a friend, invite somebody, have somebody come hang out with us. I think that'd be kind of interesting. I would like to see the channel grow a little bit. So tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Share the link, invite somebody. Everybody who watches tonight, I want you guys, if you can, if a spirit moves you, invite somebody. We'll have some fun. We'll have some fun. I think it'll be a cool opportunity. Okay, we're at the 7 minute mark. Let's get started. So we did the Five Beyond series, and this is the final chapter, the fifth Beyond. And for those who have been following, oh, you brought Sean with you? Sean, what's up? Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. Appreciate you bringing somebody. So with this series, the Five Beyonds, and I mentioned this before, the Five Beyond series was designed for individuals who are struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety. And every time I ask the question, who's struggling with anxiety, who's struggling with depression, and I've asked people to put like a thumbs up in the chat, usually we get a lot, we get a whole bunch. Like a lot of the people who come to watch are individuals who are struggling with depression or anxiety, or who have struggled with depression and with anxiety. And so the program was kind of designed to give you a little bit of perspective of what I experienced. What you guys know, I'm always telling stories about what I've gone through, right? I'm always talking about, the depression that I went through, the anxiety I went through. But I try my best to also leave it on a positive note, because I actually have overcome those things. I overcame depression and anxiety. It was a long, hard road, but it was all worth it. Looking back on how many days I had to meditate, the hours I had to meditate, the intensity with which I had to study. I took psychology courses in college because I just wanted to learn more about myself from a scientific perspective and see what was holding me back. And I had to learn about my attachment style and my learning style, and how I adapt to certain situations, and my ego and self-efficacy. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. But ultimately, with the weapons of what I learned in school, and what I learned through mindfulness and meditation, and the hours and hours I spent meditating, I overcame depression and anxiety. I still have growing to do, but I overcame. And this program was kind of designed to show you the path that I took, to show you, and I kind of put it together in a way that's kind of nice and neat and easy to digest. But it was crazy because really there was nobody to teach me step by step how to go through it. And that's why I put the program together, to kind of give you an idea of how you can kind of make it through and overcome. So the 5 steps, or the 5 stages of the program, the five beyonds. First one was beyond mind, how you can get beyond your mind, because your mind, when you're mentally ill, distorts reality. Your mind doesn't work how it's supposed to work. Your mind is supposed to allow you to be stable and allow you to be happy. But when you're suffering from depression and anxiety, your mind distorts reality. So you got to go beyond mind to kind of overcome the mental illness. And you have to go beyond time, because when you're a depressed person, you live in the past. You're always thinking about the past, always thinking about trauma, always thinking about humiliation and rejection and heartbreak, or you're worried about the future. Always concerned about what's going to happen in the future. And you learn how to focus your mind on the here and now. That kind of opens the door to forever. So going beyond time is actually just learning how to be right here, right now, and right here in the present. That's where all doors open up. When you're stuck in the past, you can't move. When you're stuck in the future, you can't move. But when you're immersed in the here and now, you go beyond time and you're free. And then we had to go to the third step, which was beyond the illusion. And to go beyond the illusion, like I said, when you're depressed and you're going through anxiety, you have all these illusions that imprison you. Illusions about how other people feel about you, illusions about your self-worth, illusions about what you can contribute to others. And these illusions are typically very terrifying. And you have to kind of put yourself in a position where you can go beyond these illusions by using logic and reason, and by really just having a real clear look at what you can contribute. And also always about developing yourself. Develop yourself so you can go beyond these illusions. And then beyond impulse. The fourth step was beyond impulse. Beyond impulse was necessary, because when I was going through depression and anxiety, I had the craziest, most self-destructive impulses. I was erratic. I was all over the place. All I wanted to do was drink and throw myself in a toxic situation. So I had to control myself by being mindful and training my mind and training my body to stop responding immediately to these responses, or stop responding to triggers that were the result of the past. I had to train myself to kind of cut ties with the past so I could be in the present moment and be free. And last but not least, tonight is beyond barriers. We want to talk about getting beyond barriers. And what are these barriers that we're talking about that are holding us back and hindering us? Well, going back to what we were talking about through the whole series, these barriers, and among these barriers, because there's a lot of barriers, but among these barriers are depression and anxiety, low self-esteem, toxic relationships, addiction, violence, right? These are all barriers. And tonight we're going to discuss how we can get beyond those barriers and tap into something greater and find that joy and that happiness and that freedom that we're looking for, right? Yeah, it was a tough journey. There's an ancient Jewish mysticism, and here I go going all mystical again. I'll try to keep it short. But in ancient Jewish mysticism, they would have these men who were kind of like spiritual scientists almost, and they would go on these go into these deep meditation trances, and they believed they were having these out of body experiences and going into heaven. And when they got to heaven, crazy thing about it is the angels were almost as terrifying as demons. They would see these angels and they would have to know certain magic words and certain spells and know how to identify certain things so that they could survive, or else these demons would destroy them. These angels would destroy them. And that's kind of how the journey is towards awakening, towards setting yourself free. You're going towards someplace beautiful, but the road along this path is a tough and terrifying road. And these angels that are there for you to guide you along that path, these angels can be very brutal. These angels of circumstance, these angels of friends, these angels of your supporters. Your supporters can be very brutal, or they can seem very brutal when they're trying to awaken you. But they're angels trying to pull you out of the darkness. But the angels can be just as scary sometimes, especially when you don't want to look at what's inside. You got low self-esteem and somebody loves you. They're an angel in your life. They love you, but it can be scary, right? So that journey of awakening is a horrifying thing. But going back to what I was saying, what's all these barriers keeping us away from happiness and joy? And I realized when I was thinking about it, the root of all of our barriers, the core concept of all the things holding us back from happiness is fear. Fear holds us back from true happiness, from true love, from true awakening, from true light, from true self-efficacy, from true self-esteem. Fear holds us back and is the ultimate barrier, and we have to overcome that fear. What are we afraid of? And that's a question I want you guys to ask yourselves. Think about it. All the times where you wanted to love but couldn't love, all the times you wanted to let go of drinking or let go of addiction, there was a fear that was there, that kept you on that path in the darkness. You look and you turn and you see the light. It's scary going back to the light. The darkness can be very comforting. So right here, if you guys don't mind, let's take a quick second. And I want you to tell me, what were you really, really afraid of that was the root of all your barriers? And for me, the root of all my barriers was fear of not being loved. What was your fear in a chat? Just let me know if you feel comfortable. You don't have to if you don't want to. But what was the root fear for all of the barriers that you built? Because we build all these walls around ourselves. We create crazy circumstances around ourselves. These are just barriers. What is your fear that kept you locked inside and kept you from being feared? Not being accepted. That's a major one. That's a major one. You were afraid of being uncomfortable, Junior. Okay. Fear of being rejected. Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to share? And I think ultimately I'm seeing here fear of not being accepted, fear of being uncomfortable, fear of being rejected. I think at the root, that's all kind of like the same. That I was unlovable. Wow. Karen, thank you for sharing. Because I think, yeah, that's ultimately the same thing. Great failure, success, abandonment, not being loved. Wow. Okay, fear of failure. Okay, success, failure, and success. You had a fear of failure and success, abandonment, not being loved. Yeah, yeah. So all the barriers that we built around ourselves come from fear, and all of these fears kind of are the same. What we're really afraid of is being disconnected, not being welcome, not being loved. We're afraid of being alone and afraid of disappointment. That's another one, yeah. But really, what it is kind of a fear of a fear of isolation, and a fear of yourself. And what do I mean when I say fear of self? Well, think about of yourself as yourself is self with a little s, not the big S. Because the self with the big S, that means like the ultimate, the supreme, the all soul that connects us all, right? The little s is who you think you are, your identity, which is usually based upon your trauma. So the little s, yourself, is your identity, or who you think you are. Not necessarily who you truly are, but it's who you think you are in your own perception. So your fear of self is, you imagine yourself as kind of like your inner child. It's not really you. It's someone else. This self, this identity is not truly you. It's somebody else. See it as an inner child, or see it as a pet. You're afraid of somebody hurting your pet self. You're afraid of somebody hurting who you think you are. You're afraid of somebody hurting yourself, rejecting yourself. You're afraid of someone not loving yourself. When I say yourself, I don't mean yourself. I mean this idea of you. And we're terrified of that. We're terrified of the idea of somebody not loving this self. It's a scary thing to love somebody and have them reject you, to love somebody and have them betray you, to have somebody, you love them and you'll do anything for them, but they feel indifferent towards you. That's probably the worst thing. You could love somebody and they'll hate you. I think that's probably better and more gratifying than having somebody you love feel indifferent towards you. Like, I can take you or leave you. That's scary. But there's a way to get past the barriers that we created for ourselves, and a way to get past this. That's a way to get past this fear, this root fear that keeps us locked inside these barriers. A lot of times we create corny circumstances, horrible circumstances, because we want that circumstance to be a barrier that disconnects us from others or protects us from rejection, right? So a lot of times you might be in a situation, you might subconsciously create a car accident, subconsciously refuse to pay a bill, subconsciously create these catastrophes and these disasters because you want to keep people at bay. You want to keep everybody away. So you create circumstances where you can't connect, right? Because you're so afraid of someone hurting this identity, somebody hurting this self, this illusory self, this pet self. You want to protect it. They want to protect it, right? And how do you overcome self-sabotage? Exactly. How do you get over that barrier of fear? And I realized that I think the greatest weapon against that fear and the greatest tool to break past these barriers, self-love. Yes, it sounds trite, it sounds cliche, but let me just go a little deeper. There is a philosopher that he was a Muslim from Spain during one of those periods of history where Spain was filled with all this Islamic mysticism and Jewish mysticism as far as spirituality and people experimenting with spirituality and blending ideas. This is a very opulent time in history. And this man's name is Ibn Arabi, right? And Ibn Arabi was a Sufi mystic who wrote a series of books, but these books were like very strange in how they were written. They were written almost like visions. They weren't meant necessarily for you to understand them, but they were kind of like written in a way for you to intuitively kind of tap into the hidden meaning of them if you can. And Ibn Arabi said something very interesting. He said that God is the only reality. Everything else is strictly an illusion. Everything else is a projection. Everything else is an emanation from God. But God is the only thing that's real. Everything else is totally illusory, right? And the Bible says that God is love, right? God is love. So if God is the only reality, right? God is everything. Everything in reality is God. And God is love. So that means everything in the universe is love. Love is the unifying force. It's the unifying, like they have this thing in science called the unified field theory. God, love is the unified field theory. Everything is bound together by love, right? But unfortunately, when you have a lack of self love, what happens is that you feel disconnected from this unified reality. You feel separate from the whole. You know that everything else is connected. People are connected by love, by relationships, by sex. And when you don't love yourself, you feel like you're not included in that. So it distorts your internal reality. It makes it so you can't connect with the beautiful, divine external reality. Lack of self love disrupts your inner reality and makes unity impossible. And what is unity? Unity means you're going beyond your barriers. All these defense mechanisms, all these coping mechanisms that we have, it all comes from a lack of self-love. That's what the fear is. The fear is a lack of self-love. When you feel that, there's not enough. That feeling and that sense of deprivation, it comes from a lack of self-love. Either because somebody hurt you in the past and made you feel like you can't love yourself, somebody betrayed you, somebody deceived you, or somebody convinced you that you have no value. But either way, it all comes from a lack of self-love. How do you restore that connection with everything? By loving yourself deeply. If you can't if you can't love yourself, what happens is that you can't accept love from others. I've been there. I've been in situations where, women would let me know, hey, I care about you. I like you. I couldn't even take it. I would self-sabotage or run for the hills or make up an excuse not to be around them because I didn't love myself. And when you don't love yourself, when other people love you, it feels so foreign and so strange. It's terrifying. You want to be loved, but at the same time, when someone does love you and focus on you, it is scary if you don't love yourself. So you have an inability to connect with others, and then you build these barriers. And then if you build barriers, guess what happens? When you build barriers, you can't create a future. We can't create a future because we built up all these barriers. You build a future by connecting with other people. It's impossible to build a future and change and develop without a connection to others. That's a necessary part of our development. Our brains are designed that way. Our brains are designed for communion and unity. Our brains are designed to want to go beyond these barriers. And all of us have trauma. Everybody has traumas. It's just that some people have trauma more severe than others. And we all want to be loved. Even the most angry, the most vicious, the most traumatized, all want to be loved. All want to be loved. But without love, that connection, in a true sense, becomes an impossibility. And guess what? And this is something I want you guys to say with me. And I want you to type it. Type it here in the chat. I want you to say it and make it very clear in your mind. I want you to say, I don't want barriers. Say, I don't want barriers. I don't want barriers. I don't want barriers. I don't want anything blocking me from that true connection. Say, I don't want barriers. Type it for me. I want to see it. I want to visually see you type it. Type, I don't want barriers. Sharon, thank you. Jackie, thank you. Anastasia, thank you. I don't want barriers. I don't want these barriers anymore. Kyron, thank you. Thank you so much. We don't want these barriers anymore. Junior, thank you. We don't want these barriers anymore. So that means we're going to have to put the work in. Rachel, thank you so much. Blossom, thank you. No more. That's right. Tamika, thank you. Melanie, thank you. Everyone, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I want you guys to say it. I want the words to say it because the Bible says in the beginning was the word. Dari, thank you. In the beginning was the word. And a lot of times we don't get what we want because we're afraid to speak it or we forget to speak it. You got to speak it into being. God said, let there be light. What happened? There was light. And if you can say, I don't want barriers, I want freedom, you can have it. But you have to very clearly define what it is you want. What you want is to get past these barriers and connect and love. All the cynics in the room right now, what you truly want is to be loved. And so do I. What you truly want is to connect. And so do I. And it's okay to say it. A lot of us are starved of what we need because it's so terrifying to even say it. I'm not afraid to say it no more. I don't want barriers. I want freedom and I want love. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So let's talk about how we can develop love. And I'm not talking about falling in love with somebody else because when the time comes, that's easy. I don't think that's difficult, or at least not for me. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. But falling in love has never been hard for me. I always been a person that wore my heart on my sleeve, probably to my detriment. But that's not hard for me. What's hard for me was the self love. How do I love myself? And I thought about it long and hard for a while. How do you develop self love? Because to me, it seemed like everybody else just kind of had it. Like somebody's born tall. Somebody's just born tall. They just born with it. And it seemed like I was just born without it. And I didn't know how to develop it. Sammy, thank you. So I had to learn how to develop self love, and I had to think about it for a moment. How do you develop self love? Well, what do you do when you are attracted to somebody else? You behave in a certain way. You grant them certain things. You offer them certain things without even they don't even have to ask. You give them these things because you want to bring them into your life and develop a closer relationship with them. So let's reverse engineer that and do the exact same things with ourselves. How do you develop self-love? Let's start with consideration. Consider how your actions and your words are going to affect you. If it's somebody who you're attracted to, somebody who you're into, you're not going to come up to them and say, "Oh man, you're getting fat." You would never talk to somebody you wanted to sleep with like that, right? Because at the end of the day, you want them to be drawn to you by the positive qualities and characteristics that you have, right? But we do that to ourselves all the time. I've done it to myself all the time. Man, you get big, you goofy looking. What's wrong with your face? I used to really just bash myself. How can I love myself and I'm being so abusive to myself? That's self abuse. It's okay to be honest with yourself and look at yourself and say, you know what, I want to get healthy. I want to lift weights. I want to get in shape. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with saying, hey, I want to be healthier. I want to develop myself. Let me eat better. Because at one point in time, I was eating fast food like crazy during the quarantine. Man, I was eating so much Popeyes chicken. I put on like 30 pounds in a week. It was crazy, right? Nothing wrong with that. But when you start harshly, brutally criticizing yourself and bashing yourself, you're not developing self love. You're not showing yourself love. Show yourself love and consideration like you will with anybody else. When you talk to other people, you don't talk to other people cruelly like that. Consider how you're going to feel the same way you consider how other people feel. You might lose your temper, but you're not going to yell and scream at somebody else. You're going to talk to them as best you can. Talk to yourself with the same consideration. I don't want to hurt my feelings. I'm not going to say this because I don't want to hurt his or her feelings. We say that all the time. But when it comes to us, oh, I can say whatever. I don't like you. I hate you. You're unattractive. You're fat. I don't like you. Right? We talk to ourselves so brutally. Let's take the opportunity to consider how our words and our actions are going to affect us in the future and do that fairly. Don't use it as a form of masochism because that's another thing that we do. Somebody says you should be healthier, right? And I remember one time, when my self-esteem was really low. I was at the gym and I was working out trying to get in shape because I wanted to slim down, but I was doing it in a way that hurt myself. I was being masochistic. I'm running on a treadmill and I'm like, you gotta lose weight because you ugly. And I'm like literally going through depression. I'm like crying on a treadmill. And this is probably an embarrassing story. Another one of my embarrassing stories. I'm on a treadmill running, crying while I'm running because I'm beating myself up and bashing myself. So I'm working out, which is a good thing, but I'm using that as a form of self-abuse. So when I say I want you to be honest with yourself and be considerate, don't try to flip that and use that as a form of self-abuse, which is something that we often do when we suffer from depression and anxiety. We take nice things, pleasant things, and beat ourselves up for them. Stop the self-abuse. Yeah, I think so too. Melanie, you probably cried at the gym because you're going hard in the gym. I cried at the gym because at that time I was really going through like some, depression and stuff. Well, hopefully your tears at the gym are like a way of healing. You know, don't beat yourself up too much. Be nice to yourself. Melanie, be nice to Melanie. Another thing that we can do, compassion. We show compassion to somebody else. Love my picture? Which one, the Beatles or the Buddha? Yeah, working out is a great way to cope with emotions that are going on inside us. It's a positive way to take that negative energy and turn it into something positive. But yeah, like I was saying, compassion. We show compassion to other people. If someone else gets hurt, we offer them our kindness, offer them our compassion to empower them and help them to heal. We never do that for ourselves. Self-compassion is a term. I never even heard the term self-compassion until I was like 34. When we talk about self-love, you can have self-compassion too. It's okay if you had a rough day. It's okay to comfort yourself and say, "Man, you had a rough day. Take a few minutes. Take a deep breath. You're okay." I talk to myself sometimes. Okay, yeah. If it's excessive, that's like I was just saying. We take something and flip it so we can use it for self-abuse. That's a definite trait of individuals who've been through depression and anxiety. Jackie, I'm gonna send you some positive energy and some love real quick. If my heart button works, there we go. Mason, you cried your eyes out for 3 hours. Well, I'm glad you're here. We're gonna offer you some support, throw you some love too, Basie. Don't worry, we're here for you. And I'm gonna tell you, I've done that before too. I've done that before too. That's why I think it's important for me to share my stories because a lot of people who feel like they're alone, but you're not alone. We're here for you. That's the whole point of this. The whole point of this is not to listen to me talk, it's so that we can all support each other. We can all sit around a campfire, spread love, and we care for you. We want you to be happy and find your joy. And I'm glad we're here. Glad we're all here with you. Everybody send Macy some love, send Jackie some love, yo. I want to see some heart. Light your heart up. Send some love, send some positive energy. Peace and blessings to y'all. I'm glad you're here with us. Much love. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Blossom. Thank y'all so much. So compassion. When you have those moments, Sammy, thank you. When you have those moments, offer yourself compassion. Give yourself some self-love. Give yourself self-compassion. Show yourself the same concern you show for everybody else. Thank you so much, guys. Sammy, thank you. Anastasia, thank you. Tamika, thank you. It's a beautiful thing. Give yourself that compassion that you need. Because you can be a source of compassion as well. Don't think it always got to be somebody else because you're going to find moments where, your self-compassion is the only thing keeping you going. Give yourself love. Give yourself time. Give yourself consideration and give yourself compassion. I'm hurting. Let me take a moment. I'm in need of rest. I need a hug. If it's somebody around you who you care about, you know what? Get a hug. Ask for a hug. Communicate what you feel. So many of us going through depression, we're so scared to communicate how we feel. because we're terrified. Like I said, at the root, it's all fear. Fear of rejection, fear of isolation, fear of disconnection from the ultimate beautiful reality of God love. You want to be a part of the unity, but are afraid that you are not included. You are afraid that you're being excluded. Show yourself that compassion and reconnect with others. Reconnect with yourself. They have this thing called havening. When I was going through depression, I discovered this by accident one day. I was giving myself a hug. I felt so broken down emotionally, I had to hug myself. And then I looked it up. Not looked it up, but like years later, I was reading a book about psychology, and they got this thing called havening. You give yourself a hug. Give yourself that compassion. Give yourself that warm shower and those deep breaths. Give yourself time to rest. Give yourself encouragement. Because of course you want you want other people involved and included too, but you can involve and include yourself in the process of your self-healing. Another thing that's very important, patience. When you want to love and connect with somebody, we have so much patience for other people, right? Somebody makes a mistake, we don't just throw them out of our lives. Somebody says the wrong thing, we don't say, "Get away from me, I never want to see you again." Wow. People don't think that you're half black. Well, you know what, Macy? Don't worry about what people think as far as that goes, because you know who you truly are. But what I want you to do is begin the process of learning how to show yourself compassion and show yourself love and show and support yourself, which I know is difficult at times. But at the same time, don't be worried about how people perceive your race, because that's something you can't help. But what you can do is empower yourself within, so that other people's thoughts will hurt you less. That's why that self love is so important when it comes to trying to build connections with others, because people are always going to have something to say. People always It's always going to be something, and the only way to escape the pain and the sadness and the suffering that comes with just existence is to love yourself more and love yourself in such a deep way that others' words will lose their effect on you. Not saying it won't hurt, but you want the pain to lose its effect. So it hurts less, and then it hurts less, and then it hurts less. And after a while, one day it might just stop hurting altogether. But that's a deep wound. I understand. I understand. Oh, I'll put it like this. I won't say I understand, but I'll try to. I'm not gonna say I understand what that feels like, because I think that kind of reduces what you're experiencing. But I'll try to understand. Yeah. So yeah, blossom, self hugs. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But going back to what I was saying, patience. Be patient with yourself. If somebody else makes a mistake, you don't just condemn them and say, "I hate you, I never want to see you again." Somebody else makes a mistake, you offer them patience. You tell them, "Well, it's all right. It's all good." Everybody makes mistakes. You forgive them so quickly and you're so patient with them. But with us, with ourselves, oh my goodness. You make a mistake and we're all over ourselves. Why'd you do that? I can't believe you dropped the ball. Can't believe you're not excelling. Why are you not perfect at this? You should have mastered this by now. What's wrong with you? We beat ourselves up. We have no patience for ourselves. All the patience for everybody in the world. People lie to us, they abuse us, they talk denigrating to us. We forgive them. We're patient with them. But with ourselves, oh no. Have no patience for ourselves. But if you're trying to love someone, you offer them patience. You offer them patience. That's a big thing. To be patient with somebody who is imperfect, especially a person with a mental illness. And if you're going through depression and anxiety, that's a mental illness. It distorts your sense of reality. It distorts the functions of your mind. It's a mental illness. So to be patient with somebody who has a mental illness, i.e., yourself, it can be challenging. But understand that illness is keeping the person from feeling whole. You have a hard time feeling whole because of your mental illness. So be patient with yourself. Yeah, I know that feeling, Daria. Trust me, I know that feeling. I know that feeling. You get hired at a job and they barely train you, and they're like, "Okay, why?" But yeah, but that's people playing a numbers game. That's people They have a certain number they want you to meet, and you got to meet certain numbers. I get it. That corporate mindset is just so robotic. Yeah, yeah, read it exactly. We have no patience for ourselves. But going back to what Daria was saying, yeah, and that's that's why quite often you have to get beyond the illusion and really have a look at the situation. Because sometimes our managers and bosses make big deals out of things. You got to really look at the situation and say, okay, you know what? It's not as bad as they think it is. The situation is very different from how they see it. And sometimes you might have to have a conversation with them and say, hey, I'm trying to improve. What can I do to improve? Be proactive. That's another thing that helps to ease anxiety for me, at least. Instead of me worrying about it, when I just attack it and go right into the situation and get it over with, that eases some of the anxiety I might have or tension I might have. There you had an anxiety attack at work. Yeah, you know what? Or with anxiety attacks, I've had those at work too, which is a horrible feeling. I've had anxiety attacks so bad, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was in the hospital. But yeah, before you go to work in the morning, because I've had stressful jobs too. Before you go to work in the morning, what I want you to do, meditate before you go in. You know, your meditation can shift your brain chemistry and your neural structure. Meditate before you go in. If you can, meditate for like at least 20 minutes before you go in. If you can't do 20 minutes, fine, do 5 minutes. But meditate before you go in. That will help ease the anxiety when you're in that situation. And then before the panic attack hits, make sure you meditate and use mindfulness before the panic attack hits. Because once you cross that line into the panic attack, it can be pretty difficult to calm yourself back down. That's right. Kingdom of heaven is within. You're absolutely right, Rita. Thank you, Shanta. But yeah, let's go down, let's keep going down the list. Now, this is something else that we were just kind of touching on with patience, forgiveness. You know, you got to give yourself forgiveness. You're gonna make mistakes, especially when you're coming out of a mental illness like depression and anxiety. Things are gonna seem strange. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna be rusty when it comes to relationships. You're gonna be rusty when it comes to friendships. You know, when I stopped drinking years ago, it felt so weird being sober. I didn't know what to do when I was sober. Such an odd feeling being sober that I would just create these, like I said, I would just do weird stuff. Just would do weird stuff and create these weird situations. I didn't know what the hell to do with being sober. It's a whole different world when you're sober. Dari, yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And if you can, extend the time. And if you're on the bus, if you got earbuds, if you want to meditate while you're on the bus. 'Cause I used to meditate while driving. Because I used to try to get in as much time as I could. It was about a 20-minute drive to work in the mornings. I would meditate in my car while driving. I'd be focused on the road, of course, but I would just say my affirmation and get my mind in the zone. That made the day much easier. But going back to what I was saying, yeah, forgiveness. Forgive yourself for these mistakes that you've made, and forgive yourself for the mistakes you're going to make. And what is forgiveness? Forgiveness, it doesn't necessarily mean wiping the slate clean and saying that you could do something wrong and then just let it go. But forgiveness is retraining your body, retraining your mind, so that you won't make the same mistake again. But using meditation and mindfulness to disconnect your body's physical response from the trigger. A lot of big words. I'll break it down. When you do something wrong, your body responds a certain way. When you think of a certain memory, your body responds a certain way. Through meditation and mindfulness techniques, when your body starts to respond to the trigger or to the stimulation that's making you uncomfortable, you take a deep breath, you relax those muscles, and by relaxing the muscles and taking deep breaths, you're retraining your body to have a different reaction to the thought. If you think a certain thought and it immediately makes you angry, you think a certain thought and it immediately makes you sad. But when you retrain your body through meditation and mindfulness, you're able to think the thought, but not have the unconscious physical reaction. So sometimes you think a certain thought and you're like, oh, I can't stand that guy. Can't stand her. She's on my nerves. Ugh. But through mindfulness and meditation, all the tension in my muscles, I'm releasing it. The tension in my stomach, I'm releasing it. I'm taking deep breaths. controlling my breath, and by doing that, what's happening? My body is, yeah, exactly, perfect words, unlearning and retraining. I'm unlearning that response. I'm retraining my body to have a different response. And that's why forgiveness is so important. I mean, forgiveness in the sense of retraining your body. Because some situations have to be taken at face value, and you have to understand when somebody does something wrong or hurts you, forgiveness doesn't mean just wiping the slate clean and saying, okay, you're absolved of all your sins and we can be best friends again. I don't necessarily think that's always safe and healthy. But forgiveness in the sense of retraining your body so you don't have the unconscious immediate response. That's what I mean. And last but not least, a tool for developing self-love is developing yourself, setting small goals or even setting big goals and achieving those goals and developing who you are makes it so that you can love yourself more deeply. When you set a goal to, say I want to set a goal and lose a pound, you lose that pound, then you lose 2 pounds, then you lose 3 pounds. The next thing you know, you're developing. You have a routine and a pattern that's getting you closer to your goals and it's making you a stronger person. You set a goal to, like myself, I set a goal to learn how to play guitar. I'm developing myself. I'm engaging in activities that I love, and I'm developing a skill at something that I've always admired. I'm a music fan. So for me to participate in this is making me feel better and happier. I think one of the things with us is the fact that a lot of people don't have hobbies anymore. We go to work, we get home from work, we're so exhausted, we feel so deprived of time that a lot of times our lives just become work, children, sleep. And a lot of us don't develop ourselves anymore. We don't take the time, or some of us don't take the time to learn a new language, read a new book series, study something just to study it. A lot of our study is done because of school or because of work, but to just be interested in something and just learn it because it's something you're interested in. Develop yourself. Dedicate time to building yourself up because when you love something, you build it. You love something, you build it. You focus your time and your energy on it. So make time to develop yourself. And one of the most important things that I learned over the years for developing better self-esteem was self-efficacy, meaning that I learned how to trust myself because I can get things done. I feel better about myself because mistakes that I made before in the past, I don't make those same mistakes because I've learned. And it makes it easier to develop self-esteem and more self-esteem because you can sit back and watch. The evidence is there. The evidence of your improvement is there. The evidence of your getting stronger and more powerful is there right in front of you. So that makes it so that you can love yourself and feel more confident in yourself. Quite often, I think we try and trick our brains. And that's what I used to try to do. When I had low self-esteem in the past, what would I do? I tried to trick my brain. I had this little affirmation where I would say, I'm great. Everything's wonderful. Everything's beautiful. Everything's spectacular. But you can't trick your brain. Your brain knows your life is crap and that you don't feel good about yourself. But when you develop skill and empower yourself by developing yourself as a person, then what happens? Your brain sees that. So when you say, I am wonderful, you know what? Your brain can believe it now because your brain has evidence to support it. You do something for somebody else and you can say, you know what? I'm a good hearted person. Your brain has to believe that because you put in the work to show that. Show and prove, like our 5% brothers say. Show and prove. Your brain will believe it when you show your brain that you can do these things. And you can do these things. You can put in work to develop yourself. You love something, you develop it. You love something, you build it. It's people who love cars. You know what they do? They build cars. You can't say you love cars, you don't build cars. I love music. I bought a guitar, developing myself. So when I say that I'm good at something, or if I say I'm a hard worker, if I say I'm dedicated, my brain knows I'm telling the truth. Your conscious mind might pretend to believe what you're saying, but your subconscious mind, which is the real guide for all your behavior and all your physiological reactions to things, the unconscious mind can't be fooled that easily. But when you provide proof and evidence by developing yourself, your subconscious mind becomes a believer. And then you start to do what? You start to love yourself more. Like that song says, I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. That's how we feel about ourselves. I'm a believer. I can't leave myself. Myself, my identity, my pet self. And then you can put that little pet self down, the little fake identity you created that you think is you, and you realize that oh, I'm deeper than that. I'm bigger than that. I'm trying to protect this fake identity I got over here, myself, my little pet self, with the list. And now I can tap into my true self, which is the all, the unified field, which is consciousness itself. Like Ibn Arabi said, the only thing that's real is God. God is the only reality, right? So our fake identity, that's really just the result of our trauma, which is the small self with the little s. We try to protect that so hard, that little ego. We try to protect it so hard. But when you realize who you truly are through self-love, you open up the door to your inner self. And what's the inner self? This. The beauty, the magnificence, the glory of the heavens is in you. Ibn Arabi says that God is the only reality. Tap into reality as it is, you tap into God. Everything you're looking at, you're seeing the force and the magnitude and the glory of the supreme. That's you. If God is everywhere, God is in you. If God is infinite, that means he's in you too. Right? And then you won't have to be afraid anymore. You've broken down all the barriers. You broke down all the barriers. How'd you break down all the barriers? Through loving yourself. All of a sudden now you love yourself. You can connect with other people. You feel happiness. You feel joy. Now you can love. When I didn't love myself, I couldn't love. I couldn't even let other people love me. If somebody paid me a compliment, like I used to write rhymes in hip hop, I write rhymes in hip hop. People would tell me, yo, I love your lyrics. I'd be like, okay, yeah, fine. I was so uncomfortable with compliments. So it kept me from really connecting with other people. Who knows what my life would have been now if I had the ability to connect back then. Had to open up that door. Had to open up that door through self-love. Now I can connect with others. If you don't love yourself, you can't love others. And people can't love you. And now that I can love myself, I went past those boundaries. I went to past those barriers and realized that I'm one with y'all. I'm beyond all barriers. Your religion, your politics, none of that means nothing to me no more. I'm not divided from anything. All is one in my mind. That's why sometimes I'm real open about the things I've been through. Because I am you. I don't have to hide nothing from you. I wrote a line in a song years ago. I said, I see everything you conceal in your soul. I see everything you conceal in your soul because I'm you. We went through the same experiences. A lot of what y'all was saying was what I went through. A lot of what I'm saying you guys have gone through. See how we're all connected? It's all one. So there's no barriers between me and you. There is no us and them. It's only one reality. And now we exist beyond barriers. And what's the key to get past all those barriers? Love yourself. Love yourself. And when you love yourself, you can love others. And when you can love others, then you can truly connect. That's what I want y'all to walk away with. We did this whole series, the five beyonds, going step by step by step, me showing you how I overcame anxiety. Or I overcame anxiety for what? You had to have a goal in mind. What's the goal? The goal is love. And like I said earlier, we can't be afraid no more. Don't be afraid of saying that I want love. Blossom, I'm glad to hear that. You stopped playing the piano for 37 years because of a childhood trauma. And I'm glad you went back to it. And just remember, you can face these things with self-love. And I'm glad you loved yourself enough to give yourself that pleasure of going back to something you were connected with. And I'm trying to send some hearts. Trying to send some hearts, but my old tablet ain't working. It's a rusty old tablet I got. That's excellent, Blossom. Yeah, absolutely. But you're doing the work. And you're doing the work because you're learning how to love yourself. You put the work in for things you love. And the fact that you did that and you put the work in, that showed me that you love yourself. Now everything is gonna open up. All is one. You got nothing to fear. And that's beautiful. So yes, it's been close to an hour. So I'm about to wrap it up. I'm about to hit the sack and get up in the morning and make my kids, my grouchy sons, breakfast, take them to school. But yeah, I just want to say thank y'all so much for showing up. Salute. Salute to you guys. Peace and blessings. And I hope that me doing this 5-part series gave you some positive energy and some insights, and understand that we're all here not to listen to me talk, but to support each other. I'm so happy that we're here to support each other, because if we were going through this alone, it'd be harder. I'm glad you guys are all here for each other. Let me send some love out to y'all and to everybody who shared tonight, everybody who opened up and gave us a glimpse into their world. I know it's hard, but I'm glad you did. Thank you for sharing, because it's not about me, it's about us. Thank y'all so much. Jackie, thank you. Rita, thank you. How my boys? My boys are good. My boys are good. They getting big, and yeah, I happened to buy that guitar, and Amazon sent me two by accident. So I just gave one to my son, because every time I start trying to practice, they pop up, start trying to pull at the strings. So I said, "Here, y'all have this. That's yours. Y'all have fun with that." So yeah, my boys are good. Thank you so much, Blossom. Dari, thank you. Good night, y'all. Peace and blessings. I'll see y'all next week. Same time, same place. Wednesday, 11/11. And make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. Bring some more friends around the campfire. All right? Later. Peace and blessings. All right. Salute. Peace. Peace. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun.